What's good, everybody? Welcome to Outside the Playbook. The NBA trade deadline went down last week. We're going to talk about the winners and losers, but before we get into that, we got to address this goofy, Killian Hayes. All right, in terms of plus minus, statistically, he is the worst player in the NBA since he got into the league, and him and his agent came together and thought it was a good idea for the worst player on the worst team to go to the front office and demand a trade.
I saw that going differently in my mind.
He's heating up.
Welcome to another episode of Outside the Playbook. Like I said, I'm getting back into the swing of things, and the NBA trade deadline was last week, and we're going to start chopping up, some of the winners and losers, but we're going to start with the losers, all right? The Miami Heat, the LA Lakers, and I'm not going to throw Golden State in there. Golden State is actually figuring out what their issue was. They're giving too many minutes to the older vets on the team when they had young guys waiting for opportunity. And then you move Kuminga into the starting lineup. He's another 20-point scorer. You bring Draymond off the bench. You bring Klay Thompson off the bench late in game situations. They're not required to play those big minutes anymore. You still need Draymond to be Draymond Green, get stops, facilitate. He can do that in lesser minutes. Klay Thompson, knock down big shots, get stops when he needs to. He can still do that. And Steph Curry is still being Steph Curry, playing at an MVP caliber level. So you have all of the things you need to put a good, decent run heading into the playoffs, especially in the second half of the season after the All-Star break. But the Lakers and Miami Heat absolutely needed to make changes. Looking at the Lakers side, all right? The Lakers need a three-point specialist, like I said in the video before, and a true five. Put next to AD. We know he can be, a dominant power forward, but he hates playing the five. So that could have been a situation where you address that issue. Kelly Olynyk was a guy that was available, somebody of that nature that can play a true five next to Anthony Davis and make him a little more comfortable. They did pick up Dinwiddie, but they got too many guys that need the basketball in their hands to be successful. You have enough guys on your roster that can hit threes, but you need a guy on your team that is going to say, I'm only here to make threes. LeBron James has always had those type of players on his roster. You look at Mike Miller, James Jones, Ray Allen, Kyle Korver. All of those players were there to hit threes. That's the type of player you need around LeBron James. And then you add in D'Angelo, Reeves, Anthony Davis, and you get a true five. That's a championship contender, especially with LeBron James playing possibly lesser minutes. Going into the playoffs, you need everybody clicking on all cylinders. That could have been a situation where you cleared that up. Looking at the Miami Heat, I would say somebody in the front court rotation needs to be added. They're very light in the post. If Bam Adebayo ever got hurt, it's a wrap for that team because he has so many responsibilities for the team. It's not even fair. Being able to guard 1 through 5 and being elite at it, just check out, the splits, the numbers, the percentages. When teams have a situation where Bam Adebayo is guarding all 5 players on the court, they're shooting a lower percentage against him. So, those are two of my biggest concerns in terms of those two teams with win now aspirations every single year. But when I look at the guys that made moves at the trade deadline, talking about the winners, Dallas didn't make any major moves. They didn't make a major splash. But what they did was they went and got P.J. Washington and Daniel Gafford, and they come in and they basically shored up the bench for the Dallas Mavericks. P.J., underrated young player. He can score, and there's some nights where he can get hot from deep. When Lively is healthy, he and Gafford are interchangeable, high energy, athletic, can crash the boards. And Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving are as scary as any duo in the NBA, okay? Luka can get you 70. Damian Lillard, got you 70. Donovan Mitchell can get you, all these 70-point scorers. You have one of them on your roster. And then you look at the 60-point scorers. You also have one of those on your roster in Kyrie Irving. So you have everything you need to make a deep run in the playoffs, but you got to put it together, and you got to make sure that Luka Doncic understands there's going to be moments where we need to take you off of the basketball, put it in Kyrie Irving's hands, because we're going to switch up some looks, switch up some schemes, run different sets, because we don't want the defense to get used to having you stand in front of us for 48 minutes every single game, because that's going to wear you down, and that's going to limit our options, especially when we get into the playoffs. OKC. Now, Oklahoma City Thunder, they're jockeying for first, second, and third in the West. And SGA is playing at an MVP level. In my opinion, he might actually be the favorite up there with another point guard we're going to touch on in just a minute. But they didn't do anything crazy. They needed a solid vet that can contribute and not interrupt the style and rhythm that the team has built in the first half of the season. Gordon Hayward is like vanilla ice cream and, you know, any cake, cookie, brownie, pie. He is going to complement anything you're trying to do on the offensive end, and he can hold his own defensively. Putting up 15, 5 and 5 basically, shooting around 47% from the field. This is an underrated pickup. Along with Biyombo, he's a serviceable big that you can have in a backup role for that team. This is one of those teams where everybody loves to talk about experience when it comes to the playoffs. I don't think that this is going to be an issue because they play a certain style where everybody is going to contribute. Everybody has a role, and it's not an ego thing. It's not a, you know, a situation where I don't trust SGA in late game situations, or I don't trust Chet Holmgren to hold his own. I don't expect, you know, they don't have those type of typical issues that you see from young teams. You know what I'm saying? I think they're going to be a problem for any team once you get to the playoffs. I don't care if they play the Lakers. I don't care if they play, you know, the Golden State Warriors. They're going to be able to hold their own and potentially knock somebody off and get to the second round in this year's playoffs. A team that I'm very not fond of. I'm a Miami Heat fan. Y'all know this. Let's talk about the New York Knicks. And I'm very shocked that I'm even going to say this, but the Knicks might be contenders for a championship. And you know what? If I'm the Boston Celtics, I'm a little nervous. If you look at their roster, all right, you got Jalen Brunson, DiVincenzo, Hart, the Villanova boys. You add in OG after you trade away RJ Barrett and quickly to the Raptors. You bring in Burks and Bogdanovich from Detroit. Randall, Hartenstein, Achua, you know, all those guys need to be healthy. But with so many injuries, you know, if they prioritize getting healthy, this team is a contender. Jalen Brunson right now, with Joel Embiid hurt and potentially missing a good portion of the regular season with the CBA rules and all these, you know, new regulations about playing 65 games to be considered for NBA in-season awards, I think Jalen Brunson is your MVP for the season. All right, if I'm Luka Doncic, I might be kicking my head a little bit, you know, banging my head against the floor. Granted, you get Kyrie Irving, but the way Jalen Brunson is playing right now in New York, one of the toughest markets to be successful in, a team that has not seen much success over the past 25, 30 years, especially not in my lifetime, to be able to play the way that he's playing every single night, especially with the amount of injuries that they've had, a lot of changes in the lineup, Randall not being there for an extended period of time, Mitchell Robinson won't be back until after the All-Star break, or he won't even be practicing and doing basketball activities until after the break, and still have this team to playing the way that they're playing. Jalen Brunson is the clear-cut MVP. If they get into the playoffs and they're healthy, I'm concerned if I'm Boston. I'm concerned if I'm Milwaukee, Philly, Miami. All of those teams need to be very concerned because this is not the team that we seen last year, okay? They're not relying solely on Jalen Brunson every trip down the court. DiVincenzo's playing at a high level. Josh Hart's playing at a high level right now. And you have all of these pieces coming into the fold. Look out for the New York Knicks as championship contenders in this year's playoffs. Give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments, are the New York Knicks championship contenders out east? That's one more for the good guys.
He's heating up.